Hello and welcome back to the model bench. This is just going to be a short little video just about airbrushing and just some of the things, you know, some of the pitfalls that I went through because I was new to airbrushing, and maybe this video will help you, you know, not make the same mistakes I made. So basically, when I got my first airbrush, well, that's my only airbrush, and I got it on Amazon, and it was one of these kind of airbrushes that comes with a compressor, this kind of thing. And the compressor, literally you switch it on and it's only got low, medium and high. That's it. You can't affect the PSI. So obviously to airbrush you want to get maybe about a 20, I find about a 20-25 PSI to get a really good spray. So I had no idea what this was spraying at. But the airbrush is pretty good. Sorry, it's a double action airbrush. So you basically press down to get air and then you pull back to control how much paint comes out. Obviously the more you come out, the more you pull back, the more paint's going to come out. That's your little cup for just putting your paint in, and then you connect it up to an air supply, which is this one. So when I got this, I was, you know, mixing up the paint, and I was just using standard kind of Tamiya paint. I was adding a little bit of thinner to it, and it would spray for a little bit, and then the head kept getting clogged. So I thought, okay, it's my fault, I'm not mixing the paint right. So I added a little bit more thinner, put it in, and then the paint came out and it was like, you know, basically water and would run down the model. So that was no good. So then I start picking up these kind of you know, colors that they say you can spray straight, you know, no mixing required, like the Citadel Air. They say you can spray them straight from the bottle. So again, I put the paint into these, and still it would spray for a little bit and then it would get clogged up. So then I would take the whole thing apart, clean it, you know, clean everything. I would then mix a little bit of, you know, thinner with this paint, put it in, it would spray for a little bit, and I was just getting so frustrated. I just kept thinking, okay, it's my fault, I'm not mixing the paint right, the ratio, and it was just so frustrating. Then I was talking to my good friend Mark, thank you Mark, and he said to me he feels it's my air supply. He said it's definitely your air supply, there's not enough air being put through the airbrush, so the acrylic is literally drying before it can get out, so it's drying up the needle and clogging the needle. So I thought at that stage, okay, my only option now is just to go for a better compressor. So I looked on Amazon and I got one for about I think about £90. I'll show you that now in a second. But basically the minute I plugged it in, it was like night and day. I can actually set the pressure, so I can put the DPI up to, like, you know, 20-25. I put the color in, I put in, you know, the Citadel, even with the Tamiya paint, I put them straight in. Sometimes I wouldn't even add thinner, and they sprayed absolutely perfect. You can actually feel the increased pressure. It really feels like the paint is spraying out now. So of course every now and then, if I feel I can just add a little bit of thinner to the paint, give it a mix, straight away I am spraying absolutely beautiful. I've never had a clog since then. I've never had runny paint. I've never had splatter. It's absolutely amazing. So, you know, it's tempting to kind of pick up one of these kits, and I mean, they're fine. You can get a, you know, a good little airbrush and an introduction, but I would say as soon as you possibly can, just move on to a proper air compressor. So I'll show you the one that I picked up now, just to give you an idea of what I've actually been using and I've found absolutely fantastic. So this is the airbrush compressor that I picked up from Amazon. This is Amazon in the UK, and I got it for £90, I think, and it is the Fengda FD186. It's a great little compressor, fits just under my desk. If I lift this button here, that will allow me to change the PSI. It just accepts a standard airbrush hose that I can just connect up, and it's not too loud. I'll switch it on, you can hear it. So it's not too bad. Obviously the pressure will build up, and then I can use the airbrusher, and once it gets down to a certain level, the compressor will kick in again. But as I said, so far I've been absolutely delighted with it. In the past, you know, if I was airbrushing a few pieces, it could take me 2 hours because of mixing paint, having problems mixing paint, cleaning the airbrush, finally getting some paint through the airbrush, changing colour, you know, what have you. Now the same procedure would probably take me less than half an hour. I just put the paint in, I spray it apart, clean the airbrush and go again. It's absolutely amazing. So that would be my big tip. The Feng Dad do different versions. I just went for kind of the middle of the range compressor, and so far it's absolutely perfect. And for 90 quid, like, you know, you can't go wrong. So that's what I've been using. I think if you look on Amazon, you'll also see deals where they sell the Feng Da. I'm probably pronouncing that completely wrong. The Feng Da, they will sell a compressor with an airbrush. So if I was just buying my first airbrush, if I had to go back, that's what I would do. Really spend your money on your compressor. This little airbrush, I say, it's a Go Helper one. I will, obviously down the line I probably will get a little bit better one, but so far it's doing all my needs for modelling, you know. It will spray like large areas, small areas, no problem. And with the new compressor now, I've just found such a huge difference. So that would be my little tip for airbrushing. So I'm going to just show you some airbrushing now, one of the deck houses, and just how I would approach it, how I would prepare the parts, and just how I go about airbrushing. Now, as I say, I'm completely new to all this. It's my first airbrush, so I'm still learning. But hopefully you might see some little tips and tricks that might help you. So we'll get on with that. So what I'm doing here is I'm just building up a light coat. I've already primed this piece with Mr. Hobby Metal Primer. So I'm just, this piece is obviously white, so I'm building it up just slowly, kind of getting an initial coat on it just to kind of give it some coverage, and letting that dry, and then just keep building and building up the coats. Same with this part here now. I've left the parts on the photo etch sheet because I just found it a lot easier. I have been removing them, but then I'd obviously have to mount them onto something to then paint them, so I just suddenly thought, what am I doing? So I leave the photo etch parts now on their sheets, especially when they're white. I think a lot of these parts are white, but again I've primed them with metal primer, and now I'm just literally building up the white slowly. You don't want to go too nuts. I also found airbrushing on the white onto grills like this, it's just absolutely perfect. They come out absolutely lovely. You get no blockages in the holes. Yeah, so I just keep building up and building up the white, letting it dry in between coats. Don't flood the piece, you know, with one go, because particularly with the little openings and stuff, you're going to get, you know, they're going to get filled with paint. So it's just all about patience, you know. Just keep building up, building up. So this is the deck housing all primed. Once I have it all painted, I'll go in and touch up all the little details, like the ladders here. They need to be painted dark iron. The handrails, the doors, handrails on this section. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to paint this area light grey, and then I can mask it off, and then I will paint the rest of it a dark grey. But this section will be just light grey, and then all the rest will be dark grey, and then obviously these sections all will be white. So this is my deck housing. I have it all primed, as you can see, and now I'm just starting to build up the light grey. And what I'll do is I'll spray it all light grey section that I need, and then I will mask that off, and then I can do the dark grey, and then obviously mask all that off, and then do the white to finish off. So this is my deck housing now. I've done the two-tone grey on the roof. masked all that off, so everything left is going to be white. Just take your time doing the masking because it really helps. So again, I'm just going to, with white, I'm just going to keep building it up, just light sprays, keep building it up and building it up. Again, you don't want to flood the model. It is kind of the temptation there is obviously just to lash on a load of paint, but if you just do a little bit, I usually do a little bit and then maybe do something else, come back, do a little bit more, go off, do something else, and just keep building up the colour. That way you get such a nice finish. And make sure you cover every area, and even make sure you turn the piece at every different angle, because the airbrush will only hit the kind of the area that you're pointing to. So within little cracks and kind of crevices or whatever, within window frames, you just keep turning the part as you're spraying. It also stops the paint building up as well. And you'll get just such a lovely coverage then, and the final piece will be so nice. And this is just a little vent. I obviously had removed it from the photo etch, so I just mounted it on some card with a hole at the back of it because I didn't want the paint pooling, and then just sprayed it in white and got a lovely finish. And here are all my pieces finished. This is the deck housing now after it's been airbrushed, so I'm really happy with that. As you can see, I just did the two-tone grey here just to match. I'll throw up an image now, you can see what I'm talking about. So I just obviously I'm going to glue this on here first. I'll then add the shutters to it. I've got my little pile of planks. So they're just going to sit nicely there. Oops. Just going to sit there. No, they're not. So obviously I'll glue them in. It should be fine. I've got these two little vents then that go here either side, and I've got this vent. I've put some tape here because I reckon I'm going to be lighting this up and I don't want light coming through this vent. So I don't know whether now light did come through the vent on the actual Titanic, but I just don't think it would look good. So I've just put some black tape behind there, and I think that looks a lot better. It just finishes it off. Obviously I have to put in my glass and then my window frames. And then I've got this piece. I think that goes over there. I'm not going to glue this piece in yet though, because some piping from the funnels has to go along here. And it might be a lot easier once I get around to putting that in and sitting that on top. And then this little piece I think goes over here somewhere. And then we've got two little kind of vents that go on top of them, kind of like little outlets. And of course we've got our railings. So I airbrushed them, and I think they came out really well, because if you try to paint these by hand, I just find sometimes the paint gets clogged around, while airbrushing just really does it nicely. The same with these vents. In the past I have painted these by hand and I just found all the paint gets clogged in the holes. It looks awful. So just giving a light mist of airbrush white, just so much nicer, so much cleaner. So that's the plan. I will get on sticking all them down together. Oh yeah, and I think these ladders, I've seen them in various shots. Sometimes they're white, sometimes they're painted, so I think I'm just going to give them a little going over of dark Gordon, and obviously I have to paint the handrails as well. So I'll get on and do all that. And here is the finished piece. As I said earlier, I'm going to leave these pieces off for the moment. I'm just a little bit worried if I glue them in place, the pipes from the funnel won't go underneath. So I reckon I'll put the funnel in, the pipes in first, and sit these on top and make it work. Same with this one. This piece goes about here, but there's funnel pipes coming in, so it's no harm leaving them off for the moment. But I'm very happy with how this turned out. Really like my planks. It's just a stack of planks on the deck house. These shutters, I don't know whether you can see them, but I've put tin plastic. In the process of making them, you have to bend them and then glue them together, so I've just put some tin plastic just to replicate kind of glass in the window, so really happy with that. I've done the two-tone colour. Yeah, really pleased. The windows, the canopy glue is great. When you put it on, it's obviously white and you think, oh god, there's too much, but it just dries clear, so it's perfect. Just painted up the ladders, the handrails, the little lights. And again, the glass is from Midwest Model Shop, so again I'll put a link down below. But it's they're perfect. They're already cut the size. You just drop them in and you're all set, so it just saves a lot of time and they look great. So you can see the glass in that. But I was really worried about this whole section because it's so delicate, with all these little what would you call them, kind of openings. But they're also delicate, so anybody who's going to be making these down the line, the only thing I would recommend is when you get these in shape, you know, when you have the kind of that section, I bent this part down a little bit more than it needed, so that when I pulled it back and put the arm underneath to prop it, it kind of bent back into shape, and it's keeping that arm. There's actually no glue keeping them in place. It's just pure how would you say, gravity or whatever. But yeah, so that worked out really well, but I was just terrified of breaking them because they're so delicate, and even all this kind of all the railings, they're so delicate. And again, just a tip from the Midwest Model Shop from Ben, when I'm bending the curve here, he came up with a great tip. He was using a drill bit, but anything kind of round, I used a cocktail stick. And again, I just put it here on the corner and then bent the rail around, and you get a lovely little curve on it then. And remember, don't make the mistake I made with my first one. The railing actually glues to the outside part of this. I actually sat it inside, but I only did it on one, so I'll know now in future. You learn by your mistakes. But yeah, so that was a great tip from Ben. And also, you know, I glued that section in first, let it dry, then bended it around a cocktail stick, glued that section, let it dry, and it's just worked out perfect. Absolutely delighted. So I hope you found this video helpful. A little bit about airbrushing, and then a little bit about just kind of detailing up the parts and putting structures together. So if you have, I'd really appreciate a like and subscribe, and until next time, see you then.